Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2024. I am Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com, and with me, once again, fresh off a completed circuit of 2024 training camp practices at Saint Vincent College in Latrobe. Additionally, with one Friday night lights practice is the great Alex Kozora. It is August the 14th. It is 5 o'clock Eastern time, so you know when we're recording this. Alex, happy Wednesday. Happy end of public training camp practices for 2024.
Happy everything, Dave. And yeah, great training camp overall, great weather, great practices, great job by you and our entire Steelers Depot team. I know camp is the most chaotic and busiest and longest portion of our entire process and calendar, even more so than the regular season. So want to make sure I thank all you guys off the top for all you've done, and then thanking everyone for listening and supporting and following along. It was a really good camp.
Well, everything stems off of you. You know, you give us tons to write about, and you give us tons, or you give yourself tons on those diaries that go up every night. And man, I've been watching you do this for years, and I would say I'm surprised, but I'm not. I mean, same old bang up job. Really enjoyed your usual formatting. I got a lot out of it as usual, and hopefully the listeners do or did as well. And we've got obviously one more the Wednesday session to recap, and we'll do a little bit of recapping at the end of the show and all. But before we get going, we have to recap one last time our special edition sponsor, and that would be Touring Plans and Lynn Testa and the fine folks over there. So one more time, Alex, tell them about Touring Plans.
Absolutely. They've also been a tremendous supporter and sponsor of our Depot coverage for many, many years now. So if you're planning a trip to Disney World, Disneyland, or the Disney Cruise Line, check out touringplans.com, and they can help you along the way. With Touring Plans, you'll get access to their crowd calendar to know the days and times when the parks are the busiest, how to avoid waiting in line for endless hours, insider restaurant reviews, how to save money on tickets, and tips to have the best experience possible. So if you guys have a trip later this year with the family to any of the Disney locations, this is the team you want to work with, touringplans.com. And again, we thank them for their steady and continued support of our Steelers Depot training camp coverage for another year.
Absolutely. And I don't see a reason why. Hopefully they'll be back again next year with us as well, too. But a longtime supporter of these special edition podcasts. If you got anything trip or anything Disney related or whatnot, make sure to look them up, touringplans.com. All right, Alex, had a couple of transactions this morning. And why don't you bring the folks up to date on that?
Yeah, a couple players getting signed this morning. Wide receiver TJ Luther. So there was a new receiver in training camp today, just not the one that people want right now. He was a full participant, as was cornerback Zion Gilbert. Luther wearing number 15, Gilbert wearing number 31, which is the number that Kalen Barnes last wore before he was waived injured. Gilbert was full and had a breakup on Kevin Austin in team. So those were the transactions, in Pittsburgh's roster now sits back at a full maximum of 91. Again, 91, not 90, because of the international exemption for outside linebacker, the rookie Julius Welshaw.
All right. I think we got everybody up to speed on all the transactions now. So with that, unfortunately, it was a busy day of you reporting injuries out there today.
It was unfortunately a sour note to end on, and we really won't have maybe a great gauge in terms of the future. Will guys practice tomorrow? Obviously, the game Saturday will provide us some insight to the status and severity of these injuries, but three notable ones, only two mentioned by Mike Tomlin, but I saw at least a third. Cornerback Graylin Arnold got hurt blocking on a kickoff period in special teams. It looked like his knee. I think Tomlin called it a calf officially, but he was limping around, tried to push through it an extra rep and just really could not move as he needed to. And so he was off on the cart. We talked about it in the past. The cart is not always indicative of a serious injury when players have to either walk up the hill or take that long walk to the facility. Just put them on the cart, especially for any leg injury. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. Jonathan Ward had what Tomlin called a hamstring, had some ice on it. It happened on a one-handed snag that he had from Russell Wilson in the flat, and he pulled up a little lame on the end of the play there. So I assume that's when that injury occurred. He walked up to the facility himself, so hopefully it's minor as far as hamstrings go. And then Nate Herbig, it was during 7-on-7. The O-line's on the middle field. They're doing just kind of a run blocking drill. They weren't in pads today, not super intense. He talked with trainers for an extended period of time. They were looking at, it looked like his left arm or shoulder. They had his arm fully extended out at one point. So I assume there was something there. And then eventually he walked with the trainer up the hill, up the stairs to the team facility. Tomlin did not mention that post-practice. It happened late in practice, but that is something to certainly monitor, especially when it comes to the pecking order at center in Saturday's game against Buffalo.
Test my old man memory here. Didn't Nate Herbig miss time with something like a shoulder or arm last year during part of training camp and some of the preseason?
He got hurt late in camp after the first preseason game. I forget what the injury was, though, but he did miss a chunk of time.
All right. Man, that's a shame about Graylin Arnold and Jonathan Ward, too, especially with it looking like Graylin Arnold. I mean, look, there's still it's too early to call it, but you still got a few days before the game takes place Saturday night there. So just keep your fingers crossed that both those guys can get on the field, and especially Arnold, because I think he played 5 defensive snaps in that first preseason game, and kind of the word seemed to be trending towards him getting more slot time in this game against the Buffalo Bills. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And you hit everybody. Did you hit Highsmith, partial and all like that?
No, I hadn't gotten to all those guys yet in terms of the guys returning and guys still out. Yeah, Arnold was visibly frustrated after getting hurt. He knows how valuable these reps are. Hopefully it was more frustration just for a minor injury as opposed to a major injury, and the frustration was just coming from him not being able to finish out the day and potentially jeopardize the weekend, and not anything that is incredibly serious long term. But a lot of players getting veteran rest days, as Mike Tomlin said earlier this week. Isaac Seumalo, I think, got 5 rest days in a 16-day training camp. Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, the inside linebackers of Patrick Queen and Landon Roberts, all given the day off. Dante Jackson, DeMarvin Leal, Troy Fautanu, Roman Wilson did not practice. Jackson and Leal doing some jogging on the side. So hopefully they'll come back here pretty soon. Good news for Keanu Benton, who came back in practice full after getting poked in the eye in Friday's game, missed a couple of practices. Alex Highsmith did not work in team, but was stressed, went through individual work and did some conditioning on the side. So don't know if he'll play against Buffalo, leaning towards no, but he's working his way back even a bit sooner than what I thought. So that's a great nugget to have for the final day of training camp.
Yeah, and once again, I'm guessing the Mike Tomlin preseason game press conference will take place either, I don't know, tomorrow or Friday 1, and I'm sure we'll get a small list of players that probably won't play in that game for sure, and then we'll get we'll leave the light on for everybody else. So the good news is we still got a couple of days to go before that second preseason game gets underway here. All right, we got the injuries out of the way. We got the transactions out of the way. Let us start with the quarterback position. And was today the fullest full of fulls that Russell Wilson has done throughout training camp?
In terms of participation, I think it's been about similar to where it's been Sunday, Monday, and then today. it felt a little more clear he was running first team ahead of Justin Fields. There still is some mixing and matching. I'd have to go back and check some of my notes here, but in 7 shots, for example, kind of a good barometer for the day, it was Wilson taking the first 4 with the first team with the 1s, and then Fields came in with the 2s in the second team. So that's a little more clarity on the pecking order. Now, some of that could just be because, Wilson missed time. They want to give him the extra reps, kind of like how Grayland Arnold missed time and he was getting reps with the 1s whenever he got healthy. But yeah, the takeaway from that standpoint is Wilson maybe didn't have more reps than, say, Monday's practice, but was probably more clearly ahead of Fields in terms of how they ran throughout the day.
All right, nobody's saying for sure yet whether or not Russell Wilson will play in this second preseason game. It sounds like Wilson wants to. Sounds like Tomlin's holding his cards. I mean, and obviously not from a strategy standpoint. I just think he's probably not ready to. They maybe haven't decided yet. Wilson said it's Coach Tomlin's decision and the doctor's decision. So maybe he's got to get one more clearance or whatnot. Do you think he plays? And it's just I don't expect you to be, right on this, but what's your gut feeling on this? Do you think he plays against the Bills?
I'm fairly confident he does. If Tomlin's mindset is the healthy will play, Russell Wilson looks healthy to me. And I understand maybe, like you said, there is that one additional hurdle he would have to clear, but the way that he's moved, the way that he's worked, the reps that he's gotten since Sunday tells me he is healthy. And so if he's healthy, he'll play. But the question is, would he start? I think he would start, but that's maybe a different topic for a different show.
All right, quickly recap what you saw out of the quarterback position today, but I'm more concerned, and probably the listeners are too. What is your big picture takeaway of the quarterback position coming out of these practices now? This was the 16th practice overall, right?
Right. 16 out of 16 today. Yeah, the today, to focus on that before big picture, I thought Wilson had a good day. His ability to kind of be able to layer throws and show touch when touch is appropriate, ability to drive the football when he needs to drive the football, just has a really good feel for that, which you would expect for a veteran quarterback with his resume. But still, it's nice to see that. I thought Fields was a little shaky with some of his accuracy. He missed Quez Watkins wide open in 7 shots. Some of his out routes a little bit behind where receivers were having to reach back for it. Still really a good camp overall for Fields. His progression from where it started to where it ended is really remarkable and commendable, but not quite as sharp as I thought Wilson was today. The overall takeaway is you got 2 quarterbacks in Wilson and Fields with a ton of talent. The arm talent is off the charts. Fields' progression was good to see. Does that guarantee, should he see, regular season action as a starting quarterback or playing quarterback in a significant capacity? No, it doesn't guarantee that. But just from where he was beginning in training camp with that up and down nature, even that out overall throughout, really once the pads came on, that started that kind of second week, was impressive. But I just think Pittsburgh has 2 quarterbacks with more talent than what Pittsburgh has had post-Ben, and that hopefully will be evident once the season begins.
All right. And in your opinion, you're right where you started on this thing. Russell Wilson, then Justin Fields, then Kyle Allen.
Right. That's still where I'm at, ending how I started personally. Fields has impressed, and I think it's fair to say that he's maybe at least shifted the conversation slightly. And as we talked about for the main Wednesday show, maybe it won't impact Pittsburgh's thoughts about who starts, but maybe it impacts if Wilson and this team was to struggle out of the gate, how quickly they turn to Fields because of the good showing that he's had so far. Still more to evaluate, 2 preseason games to go. They're still going to practice just, behind closed doors. But yeah, I think the team has more confidence in Fields than maybe what they did to begin training camp. They learned a lot more about him, but Wilson, to me, still the starter.
Was Fields the one that you learned the most about? On top of what you already knew about him throughout training camp?
Yeah, I think it has to be, because obviously Wilson missed, at least half training camp and was so slowly brought into action. You didn't get to have the fuller picture evaluation on him. And, you got to see Fields, go from that kind of Chicago looking start where the deep ball was good. The athleticism was there. The highs were there, but the lows were there too. And to kind of see him, I think, even things out throughout the process. That's one of my big takeaways of training camp overall, regardless of position.
All right, running back position. You already covered, Jonathan Ward and that unfortunate injury. Have to watch that these next couple of days. What happened today and what, give us a 30,000 foot take, recap of the running back position at camp this year.
They weren't in pads today, so you're not getting the live periods of full tackling, and the run sessions they're run at full speed, but obviously they're a different feel, intensity, and evaluation when they're not in pads. So I don't really have a whole lot of takeaways today. My only takeaway, and it kind of is more special teams, running back, but Cordero Patterson, even though he's healthy and working full, was not getting action as a kick returner in those drills. It was before he got hurt. Ward and Plumlee and P. Ryan and Warren and Copeland, and I just wonder why Patterson wasn't getting a look. I know he's a veteran. It's one sense been there, done that, but with the brand new rules, thought he would get a look and get a couple of reps in those sessions. But maybe that's a conditioning thing where they just kind of want to continue to ramp him up a little bit slowly and not put everything on his plate right away. Overall takeaways, it's really kind of unchanged because the three, at least the top two, are going to be Harris and Warren. Both had fine camps, and you kind of know who those guys are at this point. Ward was a takeaway in terms of a guy that was really separating himself from the pack to push for a practice squad spot. I think you see a little something in guys like Shamplin and Edwards, but that's obviously practice squad material. So my thoughts overall is you're strong at the top with Harris and Warren, and behind hopefully an improved offensive line. There's no reason why this team should not have success running the football. It should be a really good year on the ground.
All right. So after the top three, then obviously I think we both agree, at least from what I've seen and heard from you, and that Ward would potentially be next on the list. Who would be the one after Ward if you were to rank them?
It gets tighter there. It could go in a bunch of different directions. P. Ryan has experience. When I made my roster prediction, I kept obviously Harris, Warren, and Patterson as the top three on the 53, and then I kept two on the practice squad. They should keep two running backs. That was Jonathan Ward, and I went Aaron Shamplin, who's got some up back work. He's got some explosiveness. The vision, I think, improved throughout training camp. So that was, I guess, then technically my fifth was Shamplin, but you could still go in a couple different directions there.
All right, let's do the same with the tight end position now.
Nice day for Darnell Washington. Got wide open off of play action for a good 25-plus yard completion, but I think Russell Wilson referenced it speaking to reporters after practice in red zone, the last team period, they're working red zone ball to 20, and Washington running a 7 route to the corner that he skies and makes the catch over DeMonte Casey. Good ball, good touch from Russell Wilson. So a little more activity there for Washington. His primary focus in camp has been blocking, which is, of course, his MO, but at least there's been some, inconsistent as it's been, activity in the pass game for him.
All right. Lump in, recap me Jack Coletto's camp.
I mean, it was, old school, true fullback action. He was, occasionally they'll go, 21 personnel or 13 personnel, empty things out, but he's a fullback. I think he's a pretty competent lead blocker. I still want to get a better feel for special teams, but he's in a place where a fullback could be utilized, and there are not many cities that still offer that opportunity anymore. They offer that kind of true and blue fullback. So I think he's in the right place to try to stick. I think he's still a bubble guy right now, and special teams is going to really, I think, determine if he takes that next step, because you can, again, use Connor Hayward, potentially Pruitt, even Washington, if you wanted to, at fullback instead. So that might squeeze Coletto a little bit, but he's a guy that bettered his odds exiting camp than how he entered.
And old man Michael Pruitt did not miss any time, I don't think, during camp, but obviously Hot Rodney Williams did. It's, in your opinion, it's Michael Pruitt over Rodney Williams, pending Williams probably blowing it up in the rest of the preseason on special teams at this point, right?
The door isn't closed on Williams, but I'm giving the edge to Pruitt because better blocker and knowing the system and just being available. I mean, besides Williams, every other tight end practiced every single day of camp. It's been a really durable group, and hats off to them. Those guys work really hard. Alfredo Roberts puts those guys to work early in practice, and they get after it. But yeah, I'm still going Pruitt as number 4 over Williams right now.
All right. Wide receiver position. Van Jefferson made an impression on you this camp, did he not?
He did in terms of just a camp vacuum. And I just stress that it does not necessarily, as we saw last year, guarantee success post camp. When you talk about guys that separated themselves, you come into camp, wide receivers so bunched together, it's Pickens, and then just everyone else fighting for spots and roles. You're really not sure who's going to emerge. And it was Van Jefferson emerging as that number 2 receiver throughout training camp. He looked more athletic and bursty than I thought. He's got a really solid pair of hands. He's a hard worker, catching 300 balls in the jugs machine post practice, some veteran leadership. He can block. He's versatile. He plays inside out. So a lot of boxes to check there that this team was looking for. Is that an ideal number 2 receiver for the regular season? No, he's still not. And it helped in some sense that Roman Wilson got hurt and he kind of was out of the conversation for a large part of training camp, the padded portion of training camp at least. But in terms of just camp separation, Jefferson probably had more separation at his spot than anyone else did at their spot throughout the entire training camp.
From the start of training camp until now, do you feel better, same, or worse about Calvin Austin III?
I know I've been one of his biggest critics really the entire offseason in training camp, and I like Calvin Austin. I met him at the Senior Bowl. The coaches speak so highly of him personally.
He's a great interview. I'll listen to any Calvin Austin III interview from here until whenever. I think he's just a great, yeah. He's just a pure kid. He's great in interviews. Go ahead.
And a really hard worker as well, and even a high effort blocking receiver, even though he doesn't have the typical size, but he can still get the job done. The effort's there, and that's 75% of the battle when it comes to blocking as a receiver. But to answer the question more directly, I have not felt as good. I think it was a quiet camp. Things did pick up towards the end. The last few days had a 35 or 40-yard reception from Wilson today and team, but there was one, the best ball that, poor John Rice Plumlee has thrown all camp with his limited reps over the middle, and Zion Gilbert, new corner, came in and knocked it out of Austin's hands. And my concern with Austin, my contention has really been 2 things. Can you run the fuller route tree in the sense of can you win more intermediate routes? I'm not calling him a gadget guy. I think Austin is a true blue receiver, but he's been a vertical guy and kind of a shorter route guy. I want to see him be able to win at all levels. I've not seen him winning over the middle as much as even smaller receivers like, say, Scotty Miller. But to me, the biggest issue is that just small catch radius, which is small inherently because of his size. But, does he have the hands and the strength to be able to finish some of those contested situations? You've seen it in the occasional moment back of the end zone against Beanie Bishop earlier in camp, and that play against Gilbert today was a good example of ball he's got to catch and he could not secure it. So he's still the number 3 receiver running right now. I just have not gotten a lot of extra confidence in Austin exiting camp than where I was beginning camp.
All right. After that muff in the first preseason game, it sounds like Quez Watkins is at least bounced back as far as a receiver role goes. However, is Dez Fitzpatrick the first guy just outside the bubble trying to get in the bubble?
I guess it depends who you define as inside the bubble right now. I know we had this discussion on the Wednesday show comparing our rosters, but are you kind of putting in the bubble, putting Ayuk aside for just 1 second, Pickens, Austin, Wilson, Jefferson, and then like Scotty Miller? Yes. Or how you? Okay. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I still would give the edge to Fitzpatrick for the special teams aspect and value, which is, unique, what he can do as a coverage guy are things really the other receivers don't have in their back pocket. I think he struggled as a gunner in the opener, but hopefully that'll turn around the next 2 outings against Buffalo and Detroit. So Watkins has improved, and, credit to him for not hanging his head and stacking bad days coming off a really poor game against Houston. But to me, he's still outside and, probably like number 7 right now behind guys like Miller and Fitzpatrick.
All right, George Pickens obviously is a given, and we expected him to take that next step in year 3. And obviously we didn't talk a ton about him through these shows and all, but kind of recap the training camp that George Pickens had.
It's a really good camp, as you said, and as you would expect. It feels like to me a decade ago, the whole, oh my goodness, he had this shouting match with Zach Ghazzani the first practice, so the sky is falling. But I think those are tough love things that you're better on the other side for it. I think Pickens is a better receiver on the other side for all the work that Azani has put in. What I think Pickens has done really well that it doesn't get talked about much because it gets lost in the shuffle, understandably, of the jump ball moments, the highlight reel catches, the body control, the tracking. But Pickens has really improved his yak ability. He was not that kind of guy coming out of Georgia. Last year was better, but this year I think has even looked stronger in terms of his post-catch ability, breaking tackles, and able to make some people miss. Not super elusive, but just kind of long stride, high step, high knees kind of thing, where it's just tough to take that guy down. Even in the preseason game, you saw a couple of good yak plays with him on some short concepts, quick game stuff. So I think he's not a complete receiver in the sense of some of the top tier receivers that can just do everything, but he has progressed his game and rounded out his game in so many ways from where he started, back in 2022. I don't think he gets enough credit for kind of how he's evolved to be more than just the vertical go deep kind of guy.
All right, offensive line time. What did you see today? And, what are your main takeaways from this camp when it comes to the group? And I think even some Mason McCormick late groups at center today.
Yeah, I don't know if the Herbig injury changed that plan and put that plan into action, or if that was the intent or not. It was the literal last 11-on-11 session of the entire training camp that Mason McCormick finally got some center reps, maybe 3 or 4 in there. He would always, or often I should say, snap on the side before practice when quarterbacks were going through warmups. It was either him or Spencer Anderson as that kind of fourth center for the 4 quarterbacks. And so it's not brand new, but doing it in team is brand new for sure. I think Pittsburgh had some consideration of him as a center before they drafted him, before they got Zach Frazier back in April. So I think there's always been kind of that thought about what else McCormick could do. There was some moving and shaking on the lines a bit today. Not that it's anything incredibly notable. Spencer Anderson continued to play, left guard and right tackle. We saw some Devery Hamilton at right tackle, the third team lineman who'd been left tackle the entire camp. The new guy, Tykeem Doss, came in and played some left tackle to finish things out. So, and then once Herbig went down, Zach Frazier ran the first team offense for the final team period. I don't think he was getting those first team reps like during team period. He had been getting earlier this week. Before or until Herbig went down. I think Frazier was pretty consistently second team there. But it was just interesting to see McCormick get that center work and see, can you add to your resume a little bit?
All right. The camp Anderson had, the camp McCormick had, the camp, obviously, Fautano's been sidelined for a little bit. What did you think of the rookies overall?
I liked them. I liked their approach. I thought they worked really hard. I think you got 2 guys that really just go to work in Frazier and McCormick. You see post-practice. I know McCormick is always taking extra reps, and he's worked a lot with guys like, say, Malu to pick their brains and just, wherever they can pick up some extra one-on-one reps in coaching and teaching. To answer your question overall for them and for the offensive line, I mean, I feel maybe I was hoping to feel a little bit better about a guy like Broderick Jones and have some more clarity. And then obviously Fautano's injury. So you wanted to be able to see a little bit more. I mean, Fautano had a good camp until, he got hurt. Thought he had a rough game against Houston. I still have that prevailing frustration with how this team has bounced around Broderick Jones and worried about his growth and development and, just overall his play and outlook. But the rookie class looked good. I thought they just really came to work, and I thought McCormick looked a lot more comfortable a lot sooner than what I thought he potentially would, given the adjustments that, Pat Meyer's system makes and how tough that can be for rookies and veterans alike that are new to that kind of scheme and system, especially in pass protection. So, yeah, I just think overall the moment wasn't too big for any of those guys.
Who was the best third teamer? I think you had sort of guessed. I'm trying to recall. We've done so many of these near the beginning. I think I asked you a similar question: who you thought might be the best third line guy to come out of training camp? I think you said, I'm not sure, Joey Fisher. I think, but is that still where you are? Do you think he's the best of the last line guys?
I do, in terms of talent and play and upside. I think he's been the best guy. No third teamer stuck out to me in a really incredible way that, none of those guys are going to make the 53. There's going to be some practice squad spots they'll compete for. Ryan McCollum is versatile. He can play all 3 spots. And so there's going to be some trust there if they want to have that extra center on the practice squad. But yeah, I'd say Fisher. And then other than that, I mean, no one else really stuck out to me in any sort of way. Hardy struggled a lot. Hamilton was okay, but not much there. Beach was pretty quiet at left guard. And then just to answer your question about Spencer Anderson, he had a really good camp. No one talks about the camp that Anderson had, the reps that he got. Same Holly getting all that time off. Anderson benefited the most from the additional reps there. He had just a really steady, consistent training camp.
How many years have we been talking about Ryan McCollum being in camp now? I know 2 at least. Has it been, let's see, 2022, right?
When mid-camp ad.
Right, mid-camp ad. August 6th. Was he added like right before camp ended, or was it after camp ended in 2022?
No, it was the middle camp, because they had some third teamers that were just doing a terrible job. They brought in like 4 different linemen mid-camp to get some different guys in there, and McCollum was one of those. All
right. Any other big takeaways from the offensive line as we finish out the offense here?
I mean, I think it's a strong up a unit that they've had in a long time. That bar's been pretty low compared to the last several seasons post Prime, Pouncey to Castro, Foster, Gilbert, Villanueva, etc. So I'm optimistic about their growth and ascension, but again, still frustrated by how Broderick Jones has been used and why they couldn't get this guy to settle in the one spot, and why Dan Moore cannot even be looked at as a right tackle. But I've said my piece about that.
All right, defensive line, what you got?
Yeah, from today, again, in this padless session, not a ton of notes overall. Happy that Benton worked full. Larry Ogunjobi had a couple of pressures. He's had a good camp, and he was healthy. So we got through an entire training camp, knock on wood for the future, where Ogunjobi was healthy, and so that's great to see because he's had some stuff in the past that tripped him up. Dean Lowry looked decent in run session. I was going to ask you, we both had Lowry on our 53-man roster. Is he 100% safe? Would you bet your house on Dean Lowry making this 53 because of the injury, all that missed time?
I mean, you got a little bit of signing bonus money obviously tied up with it, and that's the only guaranteed part of the contract. I'm not sure I'd bet my house on it, but I'd probably bet about 70% of my house on it, 75% of it on there. I mean, if he's healthy and moves okay, I would think he makes it with the experience that he has.
Yeah, that's obviously where I'm at too, because I put him on my 53. But Loudermilk's had a good camp. Like, what is the difference between Loudermilk and Lowry right now, other than Loudermilk is younger and was healthy throughout training camp? They're pretty similar guys. So is it redundant if you're only going to keep, say, 6 defensive linemen and you're trying to find a difference? Leal's a different guy. He's more athletic. He's more versatile. He's a little more, he is more explosive than Loudermilk or Lowry. Do you want to, use 2 of those spots of your 6 hypothetically on kind of the same guy? And Lowry and Loudermilk to me are basically clones of each other.
Leal, it's a shame that he made some noise early through this, and had a good game the other night, and now finishes it with the last 2 practices he's been sidelined, or 3.
I think 3. I think he missed the last 3. I want to say Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday. So I mean, he looked. I think it's an upper body thing, to use the hockey term. No one's confirmed that, but he went through stretch line and he was dancing and stretching and stuff. So I can't imagine that's a lower body thing. But he looked closer to a return, but it is a bit of a sour moment for a good camp overall for Leal to not be able to work those last 3 days. And now you begin to wonder, will he be ready for the game? I think there's still a chance, even though he hasn't practiced. I think if he's healthy, you get him out there, but it's just unfortunate that he's had some nagging issues there.
All right. What's your camp takeaway on rookie Logan Lee?
It was a good camp. I mean, it was, he was one of the most versatile guys in Latrobe. I mean, he did everything that this team asked him to do to try to provide as much value as possible. That meant playing defensive end, both sides, playing D tackle, long snapping, playing nose tackle when lines got thin, when, Fehoko went down, and when Benton, got poked in the eye mid-game. So that's not really his natural spot, but he's got that can-do kind of attitude. He runs to the ball. In terms of actual evaluation of his play, it was decent. It wasn't overwhelmingly good, but I thought he held the point of attack, fairly well. And I wanted to definitely see more of him, especially in this game, assuming he's going to play more defensive end, because he was really a nose tackle against Houston. And it's just kind of hard to evaluate that because that's not his position. And you really didn't learn a whole lot from that because of that reason.
All right. That's the most you've seen out of Larry Ogunjobi in a Steelers camp, right?
In terms of level of play or just availability?
Just of availability, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he got maybe there were some half days in there, but again, there were no, because last year he had a toe issue or some leg injury last year that tripped him up, and year before I think they were easing him back in. So yeah, to answer your question, this was him being healthy every day. I think it's the first time that's happened in his Steelers career.
All right, and how does he look? I mean, does he look like we might get a version of the Ogunjobi we saw a couple of years ago?
I don't know if I want to say that. I mean, he looked good. You would expect a veteran like that to look good, especially one that's healthy like Ogunjobi. So I'll leave the jury out in terms of what kind of season he'll have. Sometimes those veterans will look good in camp, and doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go out there and dominate when you're facing stars and starters throughout the regular season. But I think he's in a good place, and if he can't have a good season, then there's really no excuse for him to struggle again.
All right. Any other gigantic takeaways from the defensive line group?
No, I think we've touched on everything. Benton is maybe a little on the quiet side. Again, as I've said before, you don't always get to see the nose tackle too cleanly in some of those run periods because there's so many bodies. You're trying to see so much. But I thought it was encouraging about him before he got hurt against Houston was showing that power, showing that long arm, that stab to be able to win in different ways beyond just the finesse and the club over. So that was the most exciting part of what I've seen from Benton was in game. More so than training camp, and him being healthy right now. When he recovered from the eye injury, should play against Buffalo. That's good news too.
All right, inside linebacker position. Great camp for Peyton Wilson, correct?
Yeah, I mean it was a good camp. I don't want to get into semantics too much. It wasn't like he was the number one best player at training camp, but he had a good camp. There's no question about that. I thought his football intelligence was there. I thought he was good sideline to sideline. He held his own even in those difficult coverage drills one-on-one in the competition period that is so slanted to the offense. He was a little lacking in backs on backers, and in game missed a couple of tackles. So I want to see him clean those things up. Didn't really get to blitz a lot throughout practice, but I think he was athletic. He's good sideline to sideline. He was obviously a hard worker, first on the field. We all know the story there. So I'm happy with the camp that Peyton Wilson had.
All right, you got to see yourself plenty of Queen and Roberts together, right?
Yeah, those guys were super fun to watch. They are tone setters. They're also really good friends. Seemingly, they're always hanging around each other early on in practice. So they're a fun tandem overall. They set the tone defensively. They challenge the offense to match. And to the offense's credit, they often stepped up in the challenge, whether that was defending Justin Fields or that crazy backs on backers drill Friday Night Lights, where Harrison Warren really responded in a big way against Robertson Queen. I thought Queen was just electric in training camp. He missed a little bit of time, but when he was healthy and out there, I mean, his ability to close in the flat and take away screens and check downs and some of those quick game type stuff, the slant flat combinations. I mean, he just was a flat eraser. It's kind of what I called him. So I was really happy with that. Communication seemed clean overall. He's not the loudest voice in the world, but I think he kind of took charge of that, which is good because he'll have to be that guy, because he's going to be the 3-down guy in Pittsburgh this season. Roberts is a hammer. He's so active against the run. Just a really fun player out there. But yeah, I think Queen had one of the better camps that any Steeler had this year.
All right. Is this the best inside linebacker group the Steelers have had, at least on paper, since obviously a group that maybe Ryan Shazier was a part of?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say. I mean, trying to think back and compare, am I going to call this shake and bake 2.0, Shazier and Vince with Roberts and Queen and throw Wilson in there? There's just depth, and Queen's going to be the every down guy, and Wilson and Roberts are going to rotate in. You got a really strong top three, and Wilson should continue to ascend. Beyond that, you're not great 4 or 5 in terms of defensive roles, but you got capable special teamers in Medikevich and Mark Robinson. So yeah, it's a really good top three. I think it's a better top three this year than what Pittsburgh had as their top 3 last year of Holcomb, Alexander, and Roberts, and they had a good top 3 last year.
Boy, you could win some money in a bar getting somebody naming off all these inside linebackers that have come through this team in the last 3 or 4 years.
Oh yeah, it's crazy the amount of turnover they've had there. We play the game of veteran signings from Mark Barron. Remember Mark Barron?
Yeah, I was thinking about him last night, and the Jacksonville veteran that came over.
Joe Schobert got traded.
Joe Schobert.
Come a long
wow.
way. Come a long way from that.
Really, really have. Then, yeah, last year, what a mess that was with the injuries and all. All right, outside linebacker. I will bet my house that TJ Watt makes a 53-man roster. How about that? That's a starting point.
All right.
I'm going to bet Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig make the 53-man roster as well, too. I feel pretty good about those bets. Tell me what's happening after that.
Yeah, it's still going to be a really intense battle between Jeremiah Moon and Kyron Johnson. We talked about that in the main Wednesday show, comparing our rosters. We went different directions. I put Moon, you put Johnson. Neither would be the wrong answer right now. This thing will not be decided until essentially August 27th on cutdown date. I think you let this thing play out the entire time. Hope those guys stay healthy. Johnson missed a week with a hamstring. Moon missed a couple of days with some unknown injury, but they're both back healthy right now. They're different people, different body types. Moon is big and long and strong, can set the edge against the run. He's got a really good spin move. Kyron Johnson is smaller but twitchy, athletic, great burst off the ball, can really threaten the edge. And so they win in different ways. It's going to be fun to compare these guys because they're both capable special teams guys, but they're different outside linebackers. And I just want to see who Pittsburgh picks, and hopefully they can keep the other on the practice squad.
All right, so if you're to bet, it's going to be one, assuming they both stay healthy, it's going to be one of Moon or Kyron Johnson. Any chance it winds up being both of them, 5 outside linebackers?
There's a chance. I don't want to say there's 0% chance of that. You could go 5 outside backers and 4 inside linebackers if you were to cut a Mark Robinson or Medikevich. I think Robinson is probably more likely right now than Medikevich. So yeah, I think it's possible. The other thing you could consider too about Leal as an outside linebacker, kind of a number 4, but when Lions got healthier, he was not playing as much outside linebacker. So I don't know if that's really their true intent to play him a ton there and just kind of a feather in his cap if they ever need it.
What'd you learn about Julius Welshoff?
I thought Josh Carney, I read his scouting report whenever Welshoff signed. We do all the undrafted free agent scouting reports that we hadn't done, before the draft. I thought he nailed the scouting report. I thought Welshoff was good against the run. He's got length. He's got size. He sheds blocks well. He had a good run defense today, getting off a block and making a tackle. I think he sets a really good edge. As a pass rusher, though, and this was Josh's report, there's really not much juice there. He's not super explosive. He's tall. He's trying to battle that height a little bit, a little awkward, being a 6'5" outside linebacker, a little tight-hipped. He tries to spin too much, and the spin is never going to work for him. There really is no great go-to move. It's there's some energy and some hand fighting, but not a lot of actual movement, generating a lot of block deconstruction and shedding guys in the pass game. So, I think he's a developmental type of guy. I'm not sure if the athletic traits will ever really be there to be an impact pass rusher, but he's good against the run. And so there's a home for that potentially in the future, but he'll obviously be on the practice squad with the exemption for 2024.
All right. Real quick on Windman. How much did Windman play on the outside? And was that just purely because the lines got short?
Yeah, that was really because the lines got short the last couple of days when they've been healthier, or at least given the outside guys more looks. He's really been an inside guy, but that versatility is nice. He's capable. He's a fun athlete. Even today, he got in the backfield for one play, I think, for a pressure. I mean, he is athletic. He uses his hands well. He stays clean. Overall, I thought he had a good camp. You've talked him up, and I know you liked his performance in the game. He graded out well. He should be a practice squad guy.
All right, cornerback. Unfortunately, a couple injuries to talk about in there, and a couple guys went out the door that started the camp, and all like that. Joey Porter Jr. is a given. Unfortunately, Dante Jackson's ending a little banged up to some degree, I think. Here, still got a lot to fit. Did you learn enough, or we got to learn the rest of the story?
I was just gonna say that.
In these final 2 preseason games, trying to sort out everything behind them.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't use your phrase of, and now the rest of the story, because
right.
we don't know the rest of the story right now. I'm still, obviously, you learn more. You came into camp, I think, really unknown with who could be the options and who could step up behind, Jackson and Porter. And Jackson had a good camp overall. He missed those last couple of days, but he's fine. He'll be ready week 1. That's all that really matters for this context right now. But behind that, you didn't know who was going to be even the options. Would Averett play outside or inside? He played mostly outside throughout camp. You lose Kalen Barnes. Trice should make it. They like him. They want to give him opportunities. There's a potential dime role for him. His coverage was okay. Wasn't really tested a ton. I want to see him, some vertical shots, really have to make plays in the football. It was probably not his fault. It just not many opportunities came his way. So I just need to learn more. And then Rush had a good start to camp, was running second team, and then kind of fell back and had a quieter end to training camp, kind of running more third team outside corner. So I think it's still pretty wide open. I think this team could and should, and I think they will bring in some external outside corner for week 1.
All right. We'll have to see what happens here at the slot, but it feels like it's one of the two of Beanie or Graylin Arnold, unless they go outside, right?
I like what Thomas Graham has done. I'm not sure if he's not going to be the starting slot corner, but he's had, good camp. Beanie had a good camp. I thought maybe it was a little overstated.
Is it okay? That's where I was going to go. Was it too much buzz? Is it just he was such the flavor going into this that we want that we are wish casting this instead of looking at it more objectively?
Yeah, I don't know if wish casting is the right word. I just think it was a little overstated to say like he wasn't tearing up training camp, especially early on when he got some of that buzz. What was interesting was he had gotten so many reps and so many opportunities to be that like consistent first team slot corner every day, even before Arnold got hurt. I know Tomlin, talked about, well, we gave Arnold the reps once he got healthy. He was healthy to start a training camp for like the first week, and he didn't get those reps. It was Bishop. So it was a longer lens and view of Bishop as that first team slot corner than what I expected. And he made plays. He had the great pick 6 off of the Justin Fields attempted screen pass. He had some really fun battles with Calvin Austin. Mike Tomlin really enjoyed pitting those guys against each other, even in today's practice, kind of their Oklahoma tackling drill, calling out, give me Cal, give me Beanie. He made some plays, but it wasn't like this great wire-to-wire camp where he is locked in as that first-team corner. There's still more to evaluate, more to learn, especially with Bishop in coverage, maybe some more downfield type stuff. So this thing's still probably open, and then the Arnold injury complicates things even more. So I'm not entirely sure where this thing should go or will go. I think Bishop makes the team in terms of roles and all that kind of stuff. I think you still have to keep watching.
All right. Talk to me about the safety position. And I know it's tough. That's probably one of the tougher positions, along with probably running back, to get a good handle on during training camp.
Yeah, it's also just, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of veteran guys. Not much new you're learning about Minkah Fitzpatrick, or even lower end guys like Miles Killebrew. Deshaun Elliott had a good camp. He played slot early in camp, played a little bit of slot today, and against some 12 personnel, they go their big nickel 3 safety package. That could be a thing they do, also to kind of have different slot options and different looks, throughout the regular season. Don't be shocked if you see that. Elliott was consistent and strong, never going to be flashy, never going to be super high end, but just be a good box safety. That's all Pittsburgh needs. And I think that's what they'll get from Deshaun Elliott. Ryan Watts, Mike Tom made the comment. I've written about it a couple times in my articles. He was very vocal. I liked Watts' attention to detail and being vocal and being able to communicate. I think working with some veterans in that safety room, also Cam Sutton getting safety work, has been beneficial from him. Watts and Sutton were paired quite a bit in team in the secondary. So, Austin talked about the rawness to his game, making the transition from corner to safety, and a lot to learn there. Kind of, to me, was indicating more practice squad than 53 for Watts, but it's still possibility he makes the 53, especially if he can show up well as a gunner. Well, he should be given some opportunities to win that battle there. So I like the camp. I like Watts' traits. There's probably some technical work to be done, understanding the NFL, understanding the new position, but from a trait standpoint, the guy is physical, he's a good tackler, I think he's vocal, he's got good energy, he was available, he practiced every day. I like the foundation for a late round pick.
All right, let's talk big picture stuff, things that maybe you've learned or thought that you already knew about the offense, or maybe some things that you learned about the offense. In any huge takeaways or surprising takeaways when it comes to offense?
Hopefully for the morning, I'll do my Steelers Depot training camp awards, where there'll be a bunch of different superlatives. And one of them, I think, was intended to be biggest surprise. And I think I do have that as one of the awards. There wasn't a lot that really shocked me, that felt brand new, that I didn't really expect. And I know that predictions about how the offense looks and how that can translate can be difficult considering how burned we were exiting last year and how things fell flat once the season began. But yeah, I think you're just going to have hopefully a really solid run game, a lot more play action, better scheme, better quarterback play. Still some jury out on receiver, but the tight ends are going to be involved a ton. So this offense, it's a low bar, like I said that earlier, but it should be better. I mean, it should be an offense that feels competent and well coached and be able to execute at least what they're trying to execute. How high end and high level it'll be, remains to be seen. It's going to really be dependent on quarterback play, I think, obviously overall, but at least we've kind of gotten back to a baseline functional offense is kind of my takeaway, which is not exactly the most sexy headline in the world to run, but it's refreshing, I think, to see in Pittsburgh.
All right. Any overarching schematics, things that you've learned about the defense throughout training camp?
No, but I mean, that's against the same people,
right.
Generally speaking, in terms of the pillars of the defense, same coordinator, same head coach, same coaching staff. Essentially, there really weren't a ton of changes defensively. The coaching staff changes were really offensively this offseason. Still Minka and Watt and Hayward. We saw a little bit of that amoeba in that 1-2 minute drill early in camp. That one defensive lineman look, saw some 3 outside linebacker looks where you got Herbig and Watt and Highsmith out there. And then some of the injuries, probably maybe scraps, repeating some of that stuff later in camp with Highsmith in his groin. So, you might see some wrinkles like that, but it's going to be the same general defense because it's the same, pillars making up that unit.
All right, walk us raw. I forgot to have you walk through 7 shots today real quick. And I think there was another questionable decision or questionable outcome, but not your book. You've been pretty consistent on this.
Yeah, I think they were all, to me, fairly clear cut. I'll walk through them though. First one was Russell Wilson finding George Pickens over the middle for a score against Arnold. Second one was Wilson hitting Freiermuth for a touchdown. There was pressure from Ogunjobi on that play. Would probably be a sack in real world environments. Next one was Wilson. Remember the slant flat or the slant fade they ran to Calvin Austin in the Texans game? The same concept. They went to Van Jefferson. Miller on the slant. Trice had good coverage. That one was incomplete. Next one was a nice fade ball from Wilson to Miller over his shoulder, beating Graylin Arnold. Fifth one was a little boot action, open-handed fake from Fields to the right. Found Jonathan Ward a little bit late in the right flat, but did find him for the touchdown. Sixth play was a Fields scramble for a touchdown, which, as you guys know, I give to the defense. And the seventh one was Fields having an open Quez Watkins, but just missed him high. A bad ball there for the incompletion, but the offense still won 7 shots overall. By my count, 4-2-3.
All right, let's play some Q&A here to kind of wind this up. Your offensive camp darling.
So you're saying Camp Darling as like the sleeper, the guy that we didn't talk about.
So you can't name T.J. Watt. You can't,
okay.
I mean, I suppose it could be a draft pick rookie if you really wanted it to. I was kind of wanting to go maybe a little bit off the fringe than that.
Sure.
But I mean, I would understand if you went that way. But all right, go.
Yeah, so looking at it from not a veteran type of guy, and I'll have articles in the have an article in the morning that'll kind of go through some of the best of camp and worst of camp. I'll say Spencer Anderson, second year guy. Didn't talk about him a ton. Was outside the bubble, entering camp, at least in my book, whatever that's worth. And I mean, we talk about just getting opportunities, and that goes back to conditioning and do coaches trust you? And with all the off days, say Malu got, it was really Anderson getting the bulk of those reps. McCormick saw a bit of increased time in those moments as well, but it really was Anderson would get the double dip of playing first team left guard to replace Say Malu, and then still his second team right guard spot. And then by the end of camp, after Fautanu got hurt, playing some right tackle as well. I think it's just consistent, steady, a good athlete. I think technically, in a good place. Just look more comfortable, obviously second year guy. So that's somebody that I think is very much trying to play his way onto the roster. There's going to be a really fun battle there. We had a great discussion on the podcast. Will they keep 9 offensive linemen or even 10? And if it's 9, is it Cook? Is it Anderson? What happens with Dan Moore? All that kind of stuff. But yeah, I thought Anderson just had a really consistent camp and took advantage of the opportunities by the veteran rest days.
All right. How about on a defensive side of football? Same question.
Thomas Graham Jr. was a guy that felt back of the pack. They signed Cam Sutton, and even though he wouldn't be able to play the first 8 games, you thought, well, you got Sutton, you got Bishop, you got Graylin Arnold in there. Is this guy even going to get any chance to get reps? He's going to be so buried. And, Graham really earned his opportunity to see more reps. I mean, he plays in the football. He had 2 interceptions, broke up a bunch of passes, can play inside, can play outside. Caught Trey Lawson's attention, and by the first preseason game, he's playing second team slot corner. He's playing ahead of Graylin Arnold, only behind Beanie Bishop. So I just thought it's a guy with really good ball skills. And if you have some physicality, some versatility and ball skills as a corner, you can stick in the NFL. Those are kind of just some baseline things that can be really attractive. How much can he offer on special teams? I think it's still kind of a question. Still learning about that. Doesn't feel like an A special teamer right now, but he's a guy that, went from, I think, kind of afterthought to, okay, he's in the mix for something and someone worth keeping around.
All right. Now you have to choose between your camp darling between those two.
Yeah, I'll go Graham still. The spoiler alert. Yeah, for my camp darling award, I did go. Because Anderson, offensively, I'll consider it a darling, but I guess Graham kind of maybe fits darling a little bit more of the definition of kind of being this real unknown as opposed to Anderson, who was on the roster all last year. But even still, I'll go Graham because that's a guy that I really was not giving much consideration to going into camp that I'm thinking a lot about right now.
And he barring, we obviously got a couple preseason games left, and we'll see what happens with Arnold and the health of this year. I mean, he's got a legitimate shot at 53, Graham.
I don't know how I want to phrase it. I would say outside looking in, if he has a really good couple of games, he's going to keep pushing. Go back to that maybe lack of special teams value that might hurt him if he doesn't really show out a lot more. How many special team snaps did Graham play against Houston? Do you have that number pulled up?
I can get it for you. A lot of burn there.
He wasn't getting gunner work. I mean, I'm sure he got something. As a backup corner, you're going to get something on teams. I'm guessing on kick coverage or kick return. I don't know if he was lining up there today when I went through my list of guys lining up on the kick coverage team and kick return team as the blockers. I don't think he was utilized there at all with the starters, at least who they rolled out there.
Let's see here. Graham. 2 special teams snaps, 8 on defense.
Yeah, I mean, again, second team slot corner. So he didn't get a lot of special teams work. It feels like he's a really good bet for the practice squad. I'm not closing the door on 53, but that still feels less likely, like a 33% chance of that happening.
All right. What was the best play in 16 practices as far as the team portion of practice?
Team portion. You wrote it on my awards because I have the best play.
Okay. Give him one more. We got treat these people have tuned in for 15 episodes. Instead of teasing something, give them something for free. And then at the end, we'll go, but wait, there's more.
This one's on the house. I will say my winner for best play is not from team, but I'll save that at least. But from team specifically, you'll see it in the honorable mentions, the others considered in the article tomorrow. Trying to think which one of the couple I have listed I would pick. I think this one actually just came very recently. The throw that Russell Wilson had to Calvin Austin, that 60-yard throw. What was that? Monday? I'm losing track of the days here. I think that was Monday. Just one of the best, just to see the arm there from Wilson. I mean, to put that on the money, it was 101 coverage and it was just so perfectly placed. And Austin made a good catch. So I think just kind of that was like a whoa moment for Wilson to really open it up and unleash that arm and make a throw that you don't see too often in a Pittsburgh Steelers training camp.
All right. Any final thoughts on training camp 2024?
This was my 10th year covering training camp. So that's kind of cool to hit the decade mark, 2014 to 2024, with the exception of not covering in 2020 because of the COVID year that they closed everything off, obviously. So I just was happy for that on a personal level, but it was just a good camp. I think overall they were pretty healthy for a training camp, and for as physical as Pittsburgh's camps are. I mean, you had some injuries, you lose Ruben Wilson and Fautani gets hurt in game, but you really didn't have anything incredibly severe throughout 16 practice setting, which I think is, pretty remarkable overall. but yeah, I just thought it was a good camp. The weather was great, like one of the best weather camps on which I like on a personal level to not be rained on. A little bit of rain, but not a
Alex
ton.
gets grumpy when it
I'm so
rains.
grumpy. Oh, I'm the worst.
It's bad to deal with him when he comes back and try to jump on these things.
All right. Yeah, it's not a great look though. When I'm sick and when I want rain on, I'm just the biggest like crybaby in the world. But yeah, just a really good spirited camp. It's fun to watch the rookie class, which looks strong and should be counted on in similar ways to last year's rookie class to make some impacts right away. So that was fun to see. And yeah, just to also see from, again, personal side, just from the site and the team that worked so hard and did such a great job. And we've kind of built this thing and, just everyone, Ross and Joe and Josh and the whole crew. Just can't say enough about the job they did. That makes my job easier to get to focus on training camp and not have to worry about some of the other stuff. And especially whenever they're dealing with IU news every 43 seconds too. And like on top of camp, it's so tough. So I just really was happy of what they did and for you, Dave, what you've been able to build. When I started a decade ago, it was just kind of me with the McLumina and some McChickens and just trying to like you, me, and Matthew try to figure it out. And now it's a pretty well-oiled machine. So it's kind of fun to be able to look at that from that standpoint as well.
And for those that don't know, tomorrow's Alex's anniversary, right?
Yeah, it'll be 11 years officially with the Depot. First article was on Jarvis Jones, my breakdown on Jarvis Jones' debut.
We'll have fun with that topic on the Friday morning podcast, okay. I think, and all like that. Shout out to the great Tim Rice. How many years has Tim been taking photos for us now?
I think he's been there about as long as I've been there. We were talking about it the last day. We were walking back to our cars. I can't remember for sure, but he's right around 2014, 2015. So yeah, Tim Rice does a great job at providing the visual, taking photography, and does a great job. Really hardworking guy.
All right, Alex. Once again, man, I would say I'm surprised, but I'm not. You do such a great job on this. I appreciate it. I learned so much, and like I said, before I get into every first preseason game, always got a good feel, I think, of what to expect and where I should see players and all like that. Hopefully the listeners, hopefully these have been as valuable to them as they have for me. And hopefully they weren't too long in certain days, and hopefully they weren't too short in days. And we try to keep these kind of compact, especially later on in camp and all, until we get to this final one. We want to spend a little bit of time there. But I give you a standing ovation once again, and you deserve it. And I certainly do appreciate you, and I love you, and can't wait. I can wait, but I won't say I look forward to such a trying time. But I look forward to the information of you getting back out there again, not the actual workload that goes along with it. All right, go ahead.
I was just gonna say really quickly, thank you to everyone who said kind words on Twitter or came up to me before or after practice and just said hello. And people, I think I talked with Greg today, and he said he was listening to you way back before I even started on the podcast, Dave, and really enjoyed that. No, he enjoyed it. And then obviously it's really liked to see things grow as well. So a lot of kind words. Everyone was very respectful of my time, which I do very much appreciate as well. So I just want to say thank you for that, the support. It's not unnoticed, and it's who we do this for, people that really love the hardcore and every nugget of information to learn every aspect of this team, and every player is important. They have a story to tell, and we want to learn about them and share that. So there's a community that also really appreciates that, which I think makes us unique compared to other places.
Yeah, look, and if people weren't reading it or listening to it, we wouldn't be putting it out. So we certainly do. We have a great built up a great readership and a great listenership over the years as well too. All right, Alex, you don't have to go, but you got to get up out of here right now. All right. As always, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button as well, and follow the directions that way. So, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast, the final special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2024 with Dave and Alex.